Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stickity Stacks in this thing. Representing T Kings of Games and Christ Jesus. Today, I'm gonna be doing a top 10. I just can't. The video will be too long. I want to do like top 20. I might just do another video after this one on rogue decks to look out for or rogue decks to just be mindful of. Because I have a fat list, but I have to pick 10, right? So I'm not trying to waste too much time because the top 10 is pretty basically, there's pretty much a lot of information packed into each slot to basically explain my reasoning on why these decks made it where other ones didn't, because I think that's really necessary considering all these decks that I'm about to name. So I'm just gonna like speed through it. So these are all the decks that could have been factored into the top 10, and I had to pick 10, bro. So PK Fire, Burning Abyss, Prank Kids, Mech Knights, Shaddolls, my babies, Galaxy Photon, Dragonmaid, my other babies, Unchained, Musketeers, Magical Musketeers, Buster Blader, Generators, if you guys know what Generators, Water/Mermail, that includes Ice Barriers, etc. Guru, Geist, Paleo, and Trap Tricks, the 4 trap decks. Eldritch, you know, it's meta, so it don't count on the rogue video. We have, then the next 4 decks are the four first gen decks. I should say 5, because it's Harpies, Blue Eyes, Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and then Magnet Warriors, if you guys remember that deck. If I have to pick out of those 5, I'd pick Harpies. I know it sounds crazy, but I think Harpies have better support than all these decks, and they haven't got as much as Dark Magician's gotten. I still think Harpies is just the best deck if I had to pick between all those. Blue Eyes, if you run the Guard Dragon cards, you can like do stuff, but Harpies can actually make a Guard Dragon build too, which is really interesting. Then we have Infernobles, Gokis. Pretty much I sold decks. I sold can be anywhere from an FTK to hand looping to multiple negates to leading into Orcus combos and summoning cards that just really shouldn't belong in your deck, but Isolde is just broken. Then we have Salamangreat, Sky Strikers. Those decks are super nice. ABCs, Infinitract, Cyber Dragons, Trains, Machinas, all those machine decks. Orcus also count machine deck. If there's another machine deck, sorry for hurting your feelings. Gravekeepers, Plunder Patrols, True Dracos, Ancient Warriors, thank you Lord Jesus, Lunalight, Security Force, Spriggans, Zombies. We have Magistus, Thunder Dragons, Tindies for Hires, Wind Witch, Speedroids, Evil Twins, Monarchs. If I didn't say Dragoonity, Fluffle, 6 Samurais, Melfies, Infernoids, Necros, Ritual Beasts, Cleaforts, Raid Raptors, Rika Fairies, Black Wings, Adignisters, Abyss Reptiles, Charmers, Spellbooks, the Assault Mode deck, Grin Manju, Zephyrs, Endymion, Pendulum Magicians, Metal Foes, Pendulums period. Mathmech, Marine Cess, Evil Eyes, 3 minutes in, dang. Ice Barriers, I already named Ice Barriers. UAs, FAs, Dream Mirror, Trickstars, Madoches, Firefist, Heretics, Psyframes, Yosinju, Skull Servants, Cold Talkers, Heroes, Chaos, Light Swarms, Crystal Beasts, Cosmos, Lair of Darkness deck, Super Quantums, I already said Dragoonities, Dark Lord, I said Magnet Warriors already, Insector, Witchcrafters, Jinzos, Danger Dark World. Let me make my Muppet face real quick. Okay, all right, I'm done. I'm done with the Muppet face. So then I said Danger Dark World, Fabled. The Stardust deck. Stardust actually has a deck. I think that deck is crazy. The deck's really, really nice. Cristrons, Predaplant, Time Thief, Neftis. The Brain Dead Trio. The Brain Dead Trio, I'd rather play Paleo, Geist, Trap Trick, or even Gurus before I play this Brain Dead Trio. Numeron, Zexal, Mystic Mind, and Stun, the Brain Dead Trio. Malefics is actually a deck. Dual Avatars, Neospatians, Evil Swarms, Constellars, Lavals, Gishkis. Kaijus is a deck, not just something you just side for going second. They actually are a deck. Samorg, the Rose archetype. Black Rose has a deck. So Stardust and Black Rose of the 5 signers have probably the best support. I wish they did Ancient Fairy justice, but then they had to ban, Ancient Fairy. Like, wow. Y'all could have gave Ancient Fairy a deck. And then we have Armed Dragon, the archetype that they pretty much just did a retrain on. Synchrons are nice. Mutants and Gladiator Beasts. So if you're this far into the video, you can clearly see that there are a lot of rogue decks. I mean, I don't know of every rogue deck, but I will say this. Meta is like the 1%. It's really like less than 1%. Because everything that's not meta is technically rogue. even if it's like tier 2, there are still tier 2 meta decks. Meta has a lot to do with popularity and obviously results in the conversion rates, because like no matter how well represented a deck is, if it doesn't get good conversion into the top cut, it really doesn't matter. So even if somebody had a 500 man event and there was 300 people playing Battery Mans and 200 people playing another deck, if none of the 300 Battery Man players make it to the top cut, the conversion rate's not there, so representation is all for naught, if that makes sense. So meta decks are not just meta because they're so trendy, so popular, and a lot of people play them. They just have the results to back it up. They have the results to back it up, and that's what makes a difference. So that's why all these decks are Rogue, and there's so much more. So meta is the 1%. Rogue is pretty much 99% of all the other decks that have ever existed or are made right now. And so that's why you hear a lot of people saying, this is slept on. Y'all sleeping on this. Bro, people are taking dirt naps because there's like 99% of the other decks that exist are pretty much Rogue. Meta is normally maybe, if you have a good format, there's maybe 10 decks to beat. Right now there's like 5 or maybe even 7. There's like the pile deck, the 60 card pile deck. There's like every Eldritch variant including Zodiacs. That's 2. Then you got like Virtual Worlds and Drytrons, which are like the Titans that are fighting for the top. Then you got Dinos, which kind of is like flopping, right? Like those are like the main popular decks. Then you've got like Adamanticators, which is kind of like breaking molds, you know, starting trends. And then you've got Dragon Link, right? That's like 7. I mean, technically, that's pretty much the meta right now, like, to be honest. Like, all the other decks are, like, roguish. Like, Shaddolls are getting really popular, but they're still rogue, you know? It's just a rogue deck, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want Shaddolls to be meta again, because you're going to have a bunch of crybabies complaining about Winda being banned. And I'm like, bro, you guys were literally just saying this deck sucks. Now y'all want Winda to ban? Like, make up your mind. So now we have top 10. I had to pick 10. So in number 10, I picked Earth Machine. Infinitrack, Train, Machina, Earth Machine. Just wrap it up. Some people call it dozer control. That terminology is not very popular, so I'm just going to call it Earth Machine. Although it should get notoriety for dozer control, because I think that's just a better name for it than Earth Machine, but it is what it is. So what does this deck have to offer? Because the reason why these 10 decks made it is because of what they have to offer, and also because I see the results that actually come out of the representation. And also, I think results just matter more in general. So, like, some decks may have better results, but at the end of the day, I think that their ceiling is not as high as the decks that I'm talking about. So, I picked Earth Machine because I think this deck is crazy. I think this deck is very, very, very consistent, very explosive. Your inboards can be anywhere from Appaloosa, Titanic Galaxy. I mean, dude, you can set up like literally multiple negates, IP Masquerena interactions. You can also end on True King of All Chlamydia. You can set up like a super duper nice Abyss Dweller board. You can go search your Cycle Reader on top of that. You can do the Ancient Gear loop, set your box. There's like a cool rotation that kind of like travels in a circle where your cards go from your grave to your field back to your hand. You rotate your cards with your Angle Knuckler in your box, and you loop your train cards, and it's just really, really good. A lot of times it's better to go for that setup because it has a really, really strong resiliency, snowballing factor, and lets you grind a lot better. This deck can play quite a few traps and hand traps. The engine really only takes 1 card to get going, and you have like 12 one-card starters. You have 3 heavy forwards, you have 3 harvesters, you have 3 redeployments, and you also have 3 Machina Metal Cruncher. And then when you factor that you can also play 3 Pot of Prosperity if you really want to see your starters more, you have 15 starters. And that's excluding like the fact that like in a way, nah, that's not really a starter, never mind. But like the Infinitrack that summons from deck kind of sometimes is like a combo starter, especially when you get interrupted. But yeah, this deck just does so much for so little. It grinds well, it OTKs heavily. I mean, the Machina cards are really disgusting. I think that Fortress and Citadel being main deck boss monsters does make a difference, because this deck can actually get the job done without playing into Nibiru or accessing its extra deck. You can end on Raigeki, multiple monster, disruption spell, trap negations, VFD, hard earth dragon. There's just way too much. I think the extra deck is going to be the biggest problem, because there's so much you can make with this deck. Because the trains have like the ranked 10s, you have the Dora, the Dreadnought, the one that burns for 2k. Then you have Juggernaut Leave, which is like a glorified, you know, basically, it's like a glorified train version of UCT, just not better than UCT if you ask me. But still, like, you just have so much that each archetype has for their extra deck. I think Machinas have the least archetype specific extra deck cards that you really would need. I think all you really would probably need is Geargigan X. The Machina cards are more main deck focused. The Infinitrack and the Trains use the extra deck a lot more, but the Machina cards let you access so many different things. This deck, there's just so much you can do with so little. I think this deck is very, very consistent, very resilient. It's good at breaking boards, making boards. You can main Torrential Strike, Ice Dragon's Prison. These are like really, really good heavy hitters. You can main Droplets because you play traps. You have just solid matchups all across the field, because if this deck wins the dice roll, it has a very good chance of beating any deck. And I'm not lying, any deck. I mean, you have Drytron Hate. You can use Paleozoic Maria to dump the Crescendo to search the Psycho Reader, or you can just go straight into Geargigan X to search the Psycho Reader. The fact that this deck can make a consistent Dweller, any deck that can make a consistent Dweller has a literal win condition, because Dweller is really strong against Shaddolls and Virtual Worlds and Drytrons and any Eldritch variant. They're really, really, really good against also Dinos. I think the best decks right now thrive so much off of utilizing their graveyard as a resource in a toolbox that Abyss Dweller is almost better than Calamity sometimes, especially against Eldritch. You want Dweller. So I just think that Earth Machines is just a really, really strong deck, and they have so much to offer, and they have such a huge toolbox and a vast like pool of cards to tap into, because it's a culmination of 3 archetypes, and each archetype has their own kind of win conditions separately from themselves, and when you bring them together in a cohesive strategy that has unique synergistic properties and actually works as if it's like literally a well-oiled machine, no pun intended, it's just a beautiful deck. It's definitely gonna keep trending because it's trending right now. It's only trending because it's good. It's not just because it's cute. Like, this deck really does stuff. It's very scary, actually. Like, I don't really like playing against this deck if I don't draw the right hand. Next up in number 9, I picked Salmon / Striker. What these decks have to offer, I'm just going to talk about their toolbox, because the main strength that these decks have is they're going to be their toolbox. The secondary strength is their engines are clear-cut, concise, compact, and very small, and it only takes 1 or 2 cards to get the engine going. So because of that, there's a lot of room for hand traps, tech cards, and meta hate, right? You can main deck, side deck cards that are normally meant to beat a specific strategy because you can get away with it because you have so much space. But let's talk about toolbox. So Salmagrate has Rage and Roar. They can end on a Dweller or Baguska. Again, Dweller is a thing. I think any deck that can make Dweller has a huge strength. Baguska, outside of Rage, Roar, Dweller, and Baguska, which are literally almost like an NTK, this deck has a consistent OTK off of Access Code Talker via Update Jammer. You have the Trans Code. You can make Lingaribo, which negates and banishes traps. You have Heat Leo to deal with back rows, as well as Salmagrate Foul to deal with back rows. You have Gazelle being able to be looped and recurred. The fact that this deck can actually recycle Ash Blossom, I think, is a really, really, really crazy strength. So this deck is so loopy and recursive, and everything that you throw at your opponent comes back to you to just keep throwing it. And you just keep throwing it at your opponent until they can't take it anymore. That's how you really want to play Salmagrates. You only go for game when it's necessary. So their engine is really, really strong because it plays out of its grave just like Drytron. But Drytron got that from Salad because Salad was out first, and they were a deck that your first turn wasn't as strong, but your second turn was stronger because you had literally Jack coming out of grave, Spinny coming out of grave. You had Falco, which Falco is pretty nice when you can dump it off Gazelle, set something, and then loop it next turn. When you summon Gazelle on your opponent's turn, it's pretty nice. You got Falco coming back. You've got cards like Gazelle being able to be looped. I mean, like this deck has just so many cards that literally say special summon, and Foxy comes back too. And I think Foxy being able to out floodgates is pretty impressive. So Foxy is included with the Rage, the Roar, the Dweller, the Baguska, the Heat Leo. And outside of Foxy, then you got Foul also to deal with back row. This deck is just like Jack of all trades, master of none. We've heard it before. It just has so much in its utility, in its toolbox. It's really, really good. And one card is actually game with this deck. And you have literally, like, I want to say, you still have technically 8 Gazelles because you have the Circle, the actual Gazelle, the 3 Minings, and then the 3 debugs, the lady debugs. So this deck is crazy. And being able to play Parallel Exceed in such a unique way, being that it can make Dweller Baguska or it can be Access Code Talker OTK, is really impressive. Strikers have, like, Shark Cannon is arguably my favorite Sky Striker spell. I love Shark Cannon. Shark Cannon is a meta-defining card because there are some formats where Shark Cannon is so good that you'd rather search it than a Widow Anchor. That speaks volumes because Widow Anchor is a snatch, steal, and a negate in one. You can actually tank your opponent's cards to link climb with them, which is just broken. What I love about Shark Cannon, though, is that the monsters not only get banished, but you can take them. I have actually used my homeboy's ABC Buster Dragon against him. What's cool with Strikers is when you kill the cards and take them with Shark Cannon, their effects are not negated, they just can't attack. So let's say you kill a Herald of the Arclight, you can Shark Cannon it back and have that negate for yourself. Let's say you kill a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss in the Dragon Link matchup, you can Shark Cannon that card and keep it for yourself. I can name a list of boss monsters that Shark Cannon takes, but the main aspect is its DD Crow effect. To banish Drytron cards, to banish Virtual World monsters, to banish the Golden Lords. Literally just banishing Virtual Worlds. It's not that great. I wouldn't say it's not the end all be all, but I think Shark Cannon and Widow Anchor are like so impactful right now. They're just way too strong. And then Afterburners and Jamming Waves, their ability to dismantle boards going second is super duper on point. Multi-Rolls is just not a fair card. That's why it's at 1. This deck can obviously play Mystic Mine. There can be only 1 Torrential, Solemn Strike, Ice Dragon's Prison. These are all win cons. It can main droplets and get away with it. 1 Ray actually is like a +2, and you play your engine out of your grave when you're just recurring your cards off of your Ray and your Kagari and searching off of Shiz every end phase. It's just really, really good. It grinds so well. It's very resilient. Number 9 is Saladin Strikers. These decks are just super OP. If you ask me, they're really good. And maining Floodgates is one of the hugest strengths and all the meta hate. In number 8, I put PK Fire / Burning Abyss. I'll talk about Burning Abyss first, because I think PK Fire does everything Burning Abyss can do, including summoning Beatrice and ending on a Fat Zeus. And on top of that, it has like more to offer because it has a Phantom Knight card. So Burning Abyss, I think the best thing that Burning Abyss has is its toolbox. So for consistency and utility, this deck has a lot. For consistency, you've got Graph, Sir, and Skarm. You've got the summoning can happen from grave, hand, deck, or even Banished Zone. Levier summons from Banished Zone, Libic summons from hand, Graph summons from deck, Sir summons from graveyard. Dante can loop and recur all your cards, so your grind game is very, very, very on point. This deck grinds extremely well. Like, in fact, this is one of the decks where you just want to OTK it. You don't want to grind with Burning Abyss. You just really don't. It's like, it's just a waste of time. Even if you win at the end, it's like, it takes too long to kill this deck sometimes. It's really annoying. For utility with combating the meta or just disruptive pieces, you have Farfa, you have Barbar for time, obviously, but you have Farfa, you have Alic, and you have Calcap. Bounce the back row, negate the monster, banish the monster. And then you have Beatrice. If you make a Beatrice with the right materials under it, it's just going to have so much to offer, so much snowballing. If you just like normal Farfa, special graph, or either order, overlay into Dante, don't activate his effect to play into Ogre and Gamma, summon your Beatrice by discarding like a Skarm, that's like really disgusting. You're getting a tour guide, and then your Beatrice can disrupt your opponent, and on top of all of that, if anything happens to Beatrice, Dante, Skarm, Dante, Farfa, and Graph can all trigger, and it's just explosive. This deck can play traps and hand traps uniquely. I think that they should be thinking about the fact that like Fire Lake exists. I don't know why people just don't play it. I personally would play Fire Lake if I was playing BAs. I would probably make people want to play it just because of how I would play it. Fire Lake is really good. That's another thing this deck has to offer. The Pilgrim's pretty nice. It's just BA is like a toolbox deck. It's a rank 3 toolbox, so there's a lot more when it gets to the extra deck. PK Fire does everything Burning Abyss does and more. You can end on a Kali Yuga play, which doesn't let your opponent play. A lot of people don't do that, but I do. That's the only way I want to play PK Fire. If I'm committing, I'm not trying to let you play because I don't want you to summon VFD and not let me play. I'm about to do exactly what you're doing to me, but I'm going to do it first. That's the name of the game. TCG players have always been pretty cancer, right? We're toxic, bro, and we spread it. We're like, you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh? All right, bro. Well, if I can't play, then you can't play either. But the PK Fire aspect is really strong because I like Fogblade as a tool. I like Rusty as a tool. I like Breaksword as a tool. I love Evil Sword Nightmare. I like Dragoon. I like that you can end on all of those. Rusty with the Breaksword and Grave, which means Fogblade is a negate and a pop because of Rusty. You have Evil Sword Nightmare. You have Dragoon. This deck can actually summon True King of all Calamities as well, which is disgusting because there's actually a Raid Raptor aspect to it. The PK Fire cards tie into Raid Raptors. You can actually summon a rank 8 and rank it up into a VFD. But I go into Kali Yuga because I think Kali Yuga is just better. It's just me. I don't know. It's like almost like a Zexal. But this deck is just very unfair. It's grindy, just like BA. But when you combine the two, your graveyard is literally a second hand. Like you could have 5 in hand, but then have 7 engraved. So you have like a 12 card hand. You know what I mean? It's just, this deck is so good. And its toolbox is really resilient. It's very, very, very solid. Even through Lancia, there's a lot that you can do. And I like that a lot about this deck. I think Rusty being off the ban list is just so good, because even now, it's not like it's like just topping every event. So I'm super glad this deck got Rusty back. Super happy for PK Fire. An amazing deck. So good. And number 7, I picked the 4 Trap Gang. I could have picked 1, but it didn't make sense because all these decks are trap-based decks. If I had to pick, I think the best ones on this one are Geist and Paleo, but I did give Traptrix and Guru love. I think Guru's the most boring trap deck I've ever played. I honestly would rather play Eldritch, because all Guru literally does is search Fiendus and Final Battle and literally just Book of Moon your cards and hope to summon Umastrix to start banishing cards. It's really the slowest of all these trap decks. Guru is the slowest. This is going to hurt people's feelings. But Traptrix are more explosive and faster. They're more consistent. They have way more starters, a lot more to offer. Paleos are a lot more explosive and consistent, as well as Geist. And Geist are not even that consistent, but they're still more consistent than Guru. Guru literally, if you don't open City, you're setting Guru in your passing. And you're just praying to God that like your Fiendus and like all your other cards can carry. Because what Guru needs is it needs impactful cards like There Can Be Only One, Summon Limit, Torrential, Strike. It needs D-Shifter, Gamma, the Dragoon package, Numeron. Guru is not good enough by itself. But Traptrix can win with only Trap Trick cards. That's something that's like really unique to it. It's very consistent, very explosive. It has a snowballing effect. Any deck that has a snowballing effect where one card can turn into more over time and keep plussing and plussing and plussing and just adding more to the pile of cards that you've already committed your 3 turns ago. It's just ridiculous. Traptrix are very OP in the right hands. You can one-shot your opponent. You can end on Dweller. Again, any deck that can make Dweller is just so good right now. Like when you can back a Dweller up with the right trap combination, and the fact that this deck can summon on your opponent's turn and get more advantage, critical mass, Traptrix are a lot better than Guru. But my favorites are actually Geist and Paleo. I think Paleos are actually the best trap deck. The reason why is not just because Totally Awesome literally summons from deck and adds from graveyard and negates a card and takes a card. It's not because Opibenia and All Chaos are unaffected by monster effect and literally can search your utility cards, play them from hand, and pop a monster, or really just pop a card just because it doesn't care. And you really, like, it's just so hard to interact with it. It's not because Dino Mistress is broken or Canadia is a turn ender. Canadia and Dino Mistress are turn enders against against Virtual Worlds. It's not because Illinois is broken or that Maria can dump like literally Orcus Crescendo and search for a Cycle Reader just because. No, it's not because the frogs are good. It's because it has all of that and then still the generic cards. Paleozoics have more for their own archetype than all the other trap decks. Even Geist, they have a better toolbox than all of them. And that's excluding the generic cards, because Guru can be so good because they have a Dragoon. That's not a Subterra card. There Can Be Only One is not There Can Be Only Guru. You know, it's not like that. Geist and Paleos and Traptrix use more of their Altergeist, more of their archetype-based cards, but Paleo can play only Paleozoic and Frog cards and win. But also it has so much more utility. And in trap mirror matches, your Paleo cards come back. Every time your opponent activates a trap, you're plussing. And Totally Awesome is just way too OP. And this deck can also summon Zeus. A fat one. Sky Cavalry can out Dragoon. This deck is really, really good. Paleozoics are really, really good. Ice Dragon's Prison, Torrential. Name all the good traps. It can play them. It can also main Gozen and Rivalry and not care. And then you have Altergeist, probably the second best trap deck if you ask me. I would never put Eldritch as one of the best trap decks if you ask me, because outside of it just being a grindy deck, all you really have for disruptions is Conquistador and Walk-Hero and the Golden Land counter trap if you really actually play it. But these decks, they have so much more to offer from their archetype, and when they get their engine going, they're a lot more difficult to deal with. These decks will all body an Eldritch player, like pure Eldritch versus any of these other trap decks, maybe not Guru, I don't know. But guys, when you get your setup with Hexia and Protocol and Silcretus bouncing, summoning Conquery off of Prime Banshee or its effect to negate cards, bounce, negate attacks over and over and over. Protocol, you can't negate my cards. I negate monster effects. I negate spells and traps. I negate everything. I keep bouncing your cards. I outgrind you. I loop my cards. I manifestation, keep summoning over and over and over. I still have all my generic trap cards. When Altergeist and Paleos get the ball rolling, it's really hard to stop them. You just can't slow them down. Then at number 6, we have Prankids. Since this deck is one of the most popular on this list, I'm not going to say a lot outside of it being a 1-card combo-based deck with a lot of resiliency. Very little utility, though. It doesn't really have like a toolbox. It does a lot of the same things, adding from grave to hand and special summoning from grave, and then special summoning from deck. The Prankid monsters in the main deck have a bit of utility, like there's like a draw, which is cool, and then the Foolish Burial, which is part of a toolbox. But outside of that, this deck is just good at doing that one thing that it does, and that's what makes it so good. Because like, why fix what's not broken? If a deck's already good at something, just make it focus on doing what it's good at. This deck is really good with getting the ball rolling, snowballing advantage. 1 card can turn into like a +5 on your follow-ups. It's crazy. Weather Washer is disgusting. You can't activate anything when it attacks. Rocket Ride. This deck is the best deck in time. It's the best deck in the game in time. This is the best deck in time. You can end on Totally Awesome or Dweller or both. Double Raigeki, double Feather Storm. I mean Feather Duster. It's just really, really disgusting how good this deck is, how many hand traps you can play through if you run the right build. This deck's super resilient, super good. Prankids are definitely a contender, 100,000%. They could top any event in the right hands with the right build and the right circumstances. Number 5, I gave it to this is the top 5 now. Warrior-based decks being Infernoble and Goki, the most formidable with the most notoriety. But when it comes to resolving Isolde, everything about that card is not fair. So any deck that's making Isolde is doing something that's not fair. Whether it's an FTK setting up infinite negates or ripping cards out of your hand and still setting up VFD and Borreload Savage and Herald of the Arclight, it's just not fair. I do think Infernobles are the best warrior deck, just period. I think Gearfried is one of the main reasons why, and also the fact that this deck has so much utility. The Infernobles are a toolbox without Isolde. You can loop your cards, add your cards, summon your cards, literally grind, even though you're playing a combo deck. On top of all of that, your extra deck is like a whole nother toolbox because of all the different heavy hitting cards that you can make, whether you're ending on Savage, Arclight, Omega, ripping cards, and looping. And don't forget, the Aqua Dolphin. That card is just stupid. The Neospatian Aqua Dolphin is just stupid, bro. Like, why do they have that card? It's so good. Hand information is so incredible. This deck can still actually hand loop you. It can actually, with the right build, if you're looping with DDRs, you can rip up to 4 to 5 cards with Infernobles and still in on negates. This deck is disgusting. Going first or second, it's a lot less resilient. It can't play through as many interruptions as it used to, but it still can. It's not like it's just a one and done. Even if something happens to Isolde or Fiber, this deck can keep comboing and set up its interruptions. I think Auroradon, the Mecha Venom Beast Link, is a big choke point. If somebody just conveniently had like an imperm and they timed it right, you could still end their turn. But I do like the Warrior dot decks. Obviously, when it comes to Isolde, when you're summoning Armageddon Knight, it can be a bit more degenerate because when you're like doing the loop with like Zephyros, the Elite, and Plague Spreader, you can actually FTK your opponent. There is a fusion monster that's like a Phoenix. When it's summoned, it burns for 300 damage for each card on the field. There is an Isolde combo where you can get to Cyberstein equipped with the spell that makes it to where Psychics can't pay life points when they activate their effects, and you go into Reaper Doctress, make the Cyberstein a Psychic, and you actually FTK your opponent. So Isolde is also an FTK, just fun fact. In number 4, we have Pendulums. Whether it's Zephyrus, Pendulum Magician, Endymion, or Metaphors, Pendulums in general. Most notably, I want to say Zephyrus, the best Pendulum deck. Not because it's literally going to make the most obnoxious boards, but it is pretty much one of the only, if not the only, outside of maybe Metaphors, to my knowledge, Pendulum decks that can summon True King of all Calamities, but it's pretty much the only Pendulum deck that can comfortably play 9 to 12 hand traps without consistency issues, because when you have all the Zephyr cards you need, there's still a lot more room for you to throw in whatever you need to throw in. And I think Zephyr has a really high ceiling. It's a very skill-based deck. I think it's more for like I just want to say it's more for like a calculated player who knows how to navigate properly through, sequence their plays correctly, and knows how to like work under pressure with a little bit, you know? Other Pendulum decks need a lot to go off, and when they go off and their board gets broken, they have no recovery, but Zephyr is pretty good. And Endymions can grind too, because normally when they negate, you're bouncing your cards with the Reflection, and also Mighty Master and Magister is pretty broken too. I mean, I don't want to talk too much because the video is getting towards the end. I think Pendulums can speak for themselves. I put it in number 4 because they're really that good over all these other decks. I personally believe they're super duper good. Like, they're really, really disgusting. Zephyr Path, Necro Valley, VFD, Shin Control, so good, right? Number 3, I gave it a Plunder Patrols. Plunder Patrols are obnoxious, bro. This deck is so good. I mean, Mork is a beast right now. Brawn is disgusting. Banishing cards is so good. Whether it's Drytrons, Virtual Worlds, or Eldritch, banishing cards is disgusting. Monster Negates, Drageye, a fat Abyss Dweller, Blackbeard, looping your cards, rotating your cards properly, grinding, drawing cards, the amount of hand traps you can play. This deck is going to get a new support card and hopefully more extra deck cards. Plunder Patrols are a control deck at heart, but they OTK so fast and so consistently. You can have untargetable 6,000 attack monsters. Let that sink in for a second. And it can be destroyed if you have a hard summon more. This deck's toolbox and the generic cards you can make totally awesome. And Abyss Dweller, again, some of the best cards ever. Drageye is really disgusting. Borreload Savage and Omega are cards this deck can make. What this deck can make is what makes it so good, because its main deck is really just about summoning the monsters and using them to go into the extra deck. So its main deck doesn't do a lot, but I will say that Emblem and Booty are really disgusting cards, as well as Shipyard's ability to boost, search, and recur all in one card. It's just disgusting. Shipyard equipping from deck. Shipping equipping from deck is super duper OP. I love Plunders, and I know for a fact that this deck is a monstrosity. In number 2, I actually gave it to Dragonmaids. I really wish that I could have gave them number 1, but Shaddolls actually got number 1. Dragonmaids can be a control or a combo deck. My build currently can end on True King of all Chlamydia, Borreload Savage, Dragonmaid Shao, Tidying, and Seal. Seal is just disgusting. Like, the Heretic is so disgusting. This deck can be played like a combo build, a slower control-based build, but no matter what, Dragonmaids can grind forever pretty much. You're looping your cards every battle phase, every standby phase. Every time your opponent even thinks about attacking, you're going to get cards back to your hand. Keep grinding it out. Tidying is broken. Shao is broken. House is broken. Every card you make in this deck is just broken. Like, everything about it. It is a dragon-based deck. You just have to let it sink in. I really want to talk more about it, but I've done so much more content on Dragonmaids and Shaddolls. That's why I don't have to say too much about them. And in number 1, I gave it to Shaddolls. But I will say really fast, the toolbox Dragonmaids have beats everything. Heretic can also summon a Morphage Sloth or Kawakima or Draco, and both of those cards are in FTK, even through a Forbidden Droplet. So, again, just the ceiling of that deck is ridiculous. Shaddolls are the number 1 best rogue deck. Shaddolls are the best rogue deck. It's not about Winda, it's not about Construct, it's just everything. The toolbox, everything this deck does. Shaddol Dragon, Beast, Hedgehog, every Shaddol monster is literally a utility card. This toolbox, this is the best toolbox deck in the game. This deck has more effects than any deck I can think of. Every card has 2 functions, and you have all these cards that can do that. You can fusion summon multiple times. Schism is broken. Oh my goodness, Apkalone, Winda, Construct, Shiki, Naga. Oh, the Dogmatica cards, Ariel. Oh my goodness, this deck is really, really broken. Like, I don't even have to say a lot to just explain to you. Winda is, I win, duh. Like, it's a win condition. It's so disgusting. Shaddolls are literally the best rogue deck, and they're getting the notoriety that they deserve. I just hope they don't get too popular, because I just need them to calm down when it comes ban this season. But if Virtual Worlds don't dry the right out, they can't out Winda. And if the right setup, you can have multiple Windas, and Winda beats everything but Eldritch, but Ariel bodies Eldritch. So it's like, bro, I win, duh. Like, bro, it's just too OP, man. Like, it's way too OP.